So how's everybody doing? It's Hank with another Two Birds and a Third short discussion. This is going to be a bit of a longer discussion, uh, just purely because of the fact that I have a lot to say. Now, about a week or two ago, I uploaded a portion of the podcast that had to do with the teams that we thought were overrated, right? Or were overrated coming into next season. And Ricky, who is, a regular as a part of my podcast, or the Two Birds and a Third football podcast, he was the only one who actually got a chance to say what team he thought was overrated going into next season. As Josh, DJ, and myself, we were going into a break, so we let him finish, and we didn't get to say the teams that we thought were overrated because we wanted to go to a break and a different subject. But he gave his opinion for why he thought that the New York Giants were going to be overrated next season. And while I agree with some of his points, and I agree with the reason why he probably had that as his team, under further review, I'm going to have to disagree with him, right? For me, in looking at it right now, the New York Giants are the most complete team in the NFC East. I think they're going to win it. Now, I said in the podcast that 10 was their plateau. I think it could possibly be 11 to 12, but I think the division is going to be way, 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 way more competitive than it has been in the past. I think that it's going to take a toll on all four teams, and the team that ends up winning the division, I think they're going to have a lower record than usual, just because all four of us are just going to beat each other up. I think that it's going to be a very competitive division. But, and while I say that the New York Giants aren't as overrated as I originally thought when I uploaded the portion of the podcast, I am electing to say, and again, I might be jinxing myself, who knows, but I still fall under my main point of what I think, my main thought, that it isn't the New York Giants that are overrated. I think it's their quarterback that's overrated. And it's not because he's declining, right? I think that Eli Manning is a very good quarterback. I respect his championships, half of his accolades, and I think that he is a quarterback who, if he was on my team, I would be happy to have him. I'm not a football player, but if he was on my team and I was on that team and we were teammates, I would go to war for that guy, right? Because I think that Eli Manning is a smart guy who knows how to play the game and has been playing this game for more than a decade right now. And whenever I make this type of video, I always get backlash. I always get people saying, "You're a hater. You don't know anything about football. You're a mental midget. You suck." Here's the thing, right? And it follows under what Ricky said in that segment of the podcast. This podcast, the Two Birds and a Third football podcast, and again, we don't get very many viewers. We don't care, right? Sure, would it be great to get viewers? Yeah, it would. But we're going to continue to do what we're doing regardless of what people think of us. But we're not here to blow smoke up your asses. We're not making our content to make you feel happy about yourselves, to make you think, oh, these guys, oh, they're always going to think the way I think. No, we're not going to do that. Never have I ever pandered to anybody. The podcast doesn't pander to anybody in particular, right? And I'm somebody who criticizes my team all the time. I'm always critical about my team. I am only I do my best to be as fair as possible on all subjects. And again, if there's something that I need to research better, I will always do that. And what I want to end up doing is I want to make a kind of like list of of ranking all the quarterbacks in this era of football, right? Who have been in the league for 3 or more seasons. But here's the thing, right? And going to why I feel this way about Eli Manning. One thing, I'm going to start out with the good things, right? Eli Manning is the most durable quarterback I've ever seen, right? You go into it and people say that, oh no, it's Brett Favre. No, it's Eli Manning. By far, bar none, the most durable quarterback we've ever seen. Because with Brett Favre, he would get injured all the time. And he'd have like minor injuries where he'd kind of like break his thumb, he'd hurt his shoulder, but he'd play anyway, right? He'd play through the pain. With Eli Manning, I mean, what? He's injured his shoulder a few times, but his injuries don't collect. And yeah, he's like 35 or 36 years old, but his injuries don't collect, And he's played every game since the middle of the 2004 NFL season when he was a rookie quarterback. So he is the most durable quarterback we've ever seen, or I've ever seen on a personal matter. But, of course, we're not at the very end of his... We don't know what's going to happen next year or the year after that, so we don't know, right? And when I'm basing my decision on who is an elite quarterback, right, who is of the elite, and I don't want to put too many people on that list. And, of course, Peyton Manning is retired, and Drew Brees hasn't had as many winning seasons as, you would like to see from those kinds of elite quarterbacks. To me, it goes down to, have you won a championship? What are your statistics? Has your team been winning? And is your team consistently going to the playoffs? Now, of course, with Tom Brady, you say, of course, he has always been to the playoffs every season but one. He's only missed the playoffs twice, and once because he got injured, right? You're looking at a quarterback like Ben Roethlisberger. Goes to the playoffs every season but 3, I think. What was it? 2006, they missed the playoffs. 2009, they missed the playoffs. In 2011, they missed the playoffs. Every other season going forward, he's consistently making the playoffs. He's consistently putting up great numbers, and he's got 2 Super Bowls to write home about. You're looking at Aaron Rodgers, the other one, the final elite quarterback. Well, Aaron Rodgers is a very special quarterback because ever since his first season, the end of his first season, which was in 2008, he has been to the playoffs every single year. And I think he's got 2 league MVPs under his belt, right? And even with the whole Super Bowl thing, like, again, I'm not calling Eli Manning a Trent Dilfer or a Brad Johnson. He is above that tier, right? But you have guys, and people always say, oh, he won a Super Bowl, so he deserves to be of elite status. You have Jim Plunkett, who's been to 2 Super Bowls as a backup quarterback and has won both. So, it's not, to me, when I look at everything all together, it's not really the quarterback that wins Super Bowls. It's the team that wins Super Bowls. The quarterback takes the team to the Super Bowl or to the playoffs. But you need to have a good team to win a Super Bowl, to go far in the playoffs. So there have been so many great quarterbacks who have never won a Super Bowl. And it was because they didn't have as good of a team, right? That's why I feel like when it comes down to it, the team, at the end of the day, is more important than the quarterback. The quarterback's going to fill seats, right? The quarterback, he's going to make it exciting during the season. But you need a defense. The defense is probably better than an offensive line, wide receiving core, and running backs, right? Because you could see Eli Manning last season, and yes, he had a good season. right? But it wasn't as good as the season before that. And I don't even think it was as good as the season before that either. But in order for you to succeed, right? And you could see that last season as he was leaning on his defense. What he had when he played the Eagles both times, I think he had 5 interceptions. When you can lean on your defense like that, is probably better than having a good offense. Because you can see that 26 touchdowns, 16 interceptions, not as good as the season previous to that. But to me, if you have a guy leaning on your defense like that, that brings down your status a little bit. But again, I don't want anyone to take this as like, oh, he hates Eli Manning. He's the biggest Eli Manning hater there's ever been. I will go on to say that Eli Manning is probably better than any quarterback the Eagles have had in their history since the merger, right? You have Donovan McNabb, who's probably the best quarterback for the Eagles since the merger. And I would say that Eli Manning has a leg above Donovan McNabb. Only because back in Donovan McNabb's era, especially the beginning of Donovan McNabb's era, there weren't as many good quarterbacks, right? He was probably 5th on the list the whole time, behind Peyton Manning, behind Tom Brady, behind Dante Culpepper, Brett Favre, who Donovan McNabb owned Brett Favre. And I might be missing a few others, but Kurt Warner probably. But I would say that Donovan McNabb was around, the ranking at the time as Eli Manning is today, which I would probably put Eli Manning somewhere between 6 and 8. That's just me. But I do not feel that the New York Football Giants are overrated, because I think they're going to have a good season. I think they've got a more complete team than any of the other teams in the NFC East. On paper. Okay? Don't get this twisted. I'm saying on paper. But the guy he could win the Super Bowl next year for all I know. Who knows? The guy holding them back is Eli Manning. Right? That is the only guy who's going to hold them back. Right? And sure, I'm not as prone to their running back core, and I'm not as prone to their offensive line. But that's a wait and see. That's a work in progress. But that's all I have. This is Hank, being as unbiased as I possibly can be, being as fair and balanced as I possibly can be, and I'm out. You have at it in the comments section, and I'll be back within next week with more content. Check out our weekend podcast, our Sunday podcast tomorrow with Nick Fargo. Again, we'll be back within the week with more commentary. Peace.